Is Super Draco 380, and we're back with stage 19 of Build the Battleship Bismarck. Today we're doing the jackstaff and the bow light. So first things first, we have another section of deck and a barbette. Just like the other barbette, it's just going to clip in the exact same way. So line up the first clip and then just kind of squeeze it in there and get the others in. And once that's done, we're done with that, and then on to the bow light. So first things first, we're going to take the deck we've been working on in the last few sections, and right there we're going to fix a guide for the fiber optic. Now, this fiber optic interface is actually one of the intriguing things that made me want to build the Battleship Bismarck. So I'm just going to clip that off of the sprue with my nippers. So next we're going to bring in the jackstaff itself, and then on that tiny sprue are a couple of plugs. We're only going to use one plug, so we have one spare. Now the instructions actually didn't say to glue the plug into it, but I ended up later just gluing it in because it would keep falling out. So the plug goes in like that at the very top, and then through that little hole right there we're going to insert a fiber optic wire. Here we have the fiber optic wire, or cable I should say. So the first thing we're going to do with this is at one end of it we're going to tie a knot into it. So we're going to pull it. Now I wasn't sure of how tightly to pull the knot, as the instructions say pull it quite tightly, but it was surprisingly how tightly you need to pull. So what we're going to do with the fiber optic cable is we're going to thread the long end through the hole in the jackstaff out the bottom. And with my giant hands, this was a little more difficult than it would be with somebody with smaller, more dexterous hands. So then we've got it fed through, and I'm going to pull it through. And as you can see, my knot, because it's not tight enough, the knot is sticking way out. So there I'm pulling it as tightly as I possibly can, and there, now it's fitting in the jackstaff pretty good. Now the instructions actually say to go ahead and clip the end off of the bulb we've just made using a knot. I don't do that right away so that if I have a problem with the jackstaff, then I can come back and fix it. And I haven't just gone ahead and sliced it. Now, as you can see, the end of it got through the wrong hole. It's actually going to go through the very small hole on the very front of the bow. And there we go. So then the jackstaff itself will rest at the top of the hole, so you should not see any of the fiber optic at the bottom. So I'm going to set it down. And then what we're going to do is slide the jackstaff support over. And this is where I've been getting my glue, not only for the jackstaff supports, but also for the end cap that I believe has already fallen out once. So just getting a toothpick. So then the jackstaff support is just going to fit right over the jackstaff up at the top. I was incorrect. The plug actually is still in at this point. So then I'm going to put some glue on the legs there. Peg in those supports. And then make sure the jackstaff itself is in the third hole. Then I'm just going to make sure it's sitting nice and straight. And while we wait for the glue to set. So next we've got this is a fiber optic cable mount. So this is going to go onto the fiber optic to guide it into the position we're looking for. So first thing we're going to do is flip over so we can see the underside. So then the cable support is just going to thread, is just going to thread on, just like that. And the thread support, honestly, I don't know what I was expecting right there, but it basically fell off. So I'm trying to shove the fiber optic back through with just my fingers and it's not working. So now we're going to set down the deck and I'm just going to do it the old-fashioned way. So then it's going to fit into that rectangular hole right there. So first things first, we're going to get our toothpick and some glue because we don't want this wandering later. And it's going to peg in nice and tight. Just like that. So then we're going to take the fiber optic and it's going to go into that little guide we inserted earlier. And just like that, it's going to snap in. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our nippers and we want to cut that to be perfectly flush. And now that we've got everything lined up, trimming it off isn't a big deal because we've got everything in place and measured. So then after making sure that's nice and flush, then we're going to bring in our LED. And they wrapped this one up pretty good. And then what we have here is our LED cover, and we're going to fit that in with a DP screw. So then first, the LED, the tip of it's going to plug in there. You want the black facing at this. You want the black on the right facing towards the bow, and the red on the left or the port facing towards the bow. Although when you flip it upside down, I guess it would be inverted, and the red would actually be starboard and the black would be port. I'm just going to get my screw out. I think this might be the first time I didn't fail to get the screw out of the package without resistance. So then that hole will go over there, and that's going to screw down to hold this panel in place. Magnet on my screwdriver's getting a little weak. I'm going to have to fix that after the next few videos, because I filmed them all back to back to back. Now, people out there watching, do you want me to actually talk while I'm building, or do you prefer me doing the voiceover after the fact? Just tell me in the comments below. So this LED is going to go through the loop on the circuit board. Then we're just going to move those wires out the way so we don't pinch them or get tangled. Go through. And then this is going to plug into port 1. Now obviously it's not that hard to figure out which one's port 1 because it's labeled, but it's also the only one on this side that's not got a plug in it at the moment. And honestly, I'm making this way harder than it needs to be. And there we go, we've got it plugged in. So then, I've still got the battery box and the test box still attached. So then all we're going to do is give this a quick test. So then in switching the battery box on, and press button number 3, the jack staff should light up. And look at that, it's all lit up. You can actually see the LED under it glowing, or the LED glowing through the optic line. So then now that everything's working without a problem, the last thing I'm going to do is nip off the end of that I didn't do until just now. Because look at that. I've never done a technique like that before. That's something cool. At least to me while I'm building this. Right? And I think I'm going to include some shots in the dark. But other than that, I appreciate everyone who's been watching the videos and keeping on the journey with me. And I'll see you with stage 20.